Go.
Welcome to Untold, a podcast about Utah's boldest entrepreneurs and business leaders and their behind the scenes battles, breakthroughs, and what the heck were we thinking moments. These are stories you'll wish you'd heard sooner about the businesses you might not have known were right next door. With me today is Charlie Graves, CEO of Athletic Republic. Great to see you, Charlie.
Well, John, thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So one of the things I'd like to learn from you here, I got on your websites, I looked around at some of the social media for Athletic Republic, and one of the things I kept seeing over and over was this saying of transforming potential into performance. Unpack that for me a little bit and tell me about why that's one of the common themes around Athletic Republic.
Yeah, I saw that somewhere long ago, and I was like, that really resonates with me as well. And so we made that our mission statement, to transform potential into performance. We help every athlete become the best version of themselves, and we help our owners achieve their goals as well. So as a franchise system, we serve our consumer, which is the athlete that trains with us, and our customer, which is our franchisee. And I think it speaks to both of them very, very well.
That's great. I'm curious, so what in your history, how did it speak to you personally? What was it that it touched for you?
I think, every one of us wants to be better. Every one of us, I don't care what we do, you always want to improve. Somebody with an inquisitive mind or an athlete that wants to compete, you always want to get better. And I think being your best is a reasonable goal. I mean, why can't I be the best, my best? And, I can't be your best or somebody else's, but I can be my best. And so transforming potential into performance is about everybody performing at the highest level they can. And then, you take what you can get. I mean, whether it's competition or in business or anything, if you bring your best and you prepared your best, what more can you ask for?
That's true. No regrets, right? So Athletic Republic, you mentioned already, it's a franchise business. Tell me a little bit just about the footprint. And I noticed that you've been around 35 years, which seems pretty unusual. Seems like franchises kind of go through cycles. So what's the footprint, and tell me, what's the secret to staying relevant and staying healthy in such a crowded space? Like there's so many different brands in this space of athletics.
Well, I think you're right. Especially, fads move in and out of everything, right? And fitness is no wonder. Remember back in aerobics days and the leg warmers, we had the Thigh Master, and recently we had cryotherapy. There's always fads moving in franchising, and fitness in particular. I think human performance is something that I'm back to my prior statement. Human performance is something we all want to improve upon. The quest for, whether it's genetic or artificial, I think for us, it's all about trying to help safely, healthily, in a healthy way, help every athlete reach their full potential. And the franchise system is designed to scale that, to help every one of our franchise owners and operators do the same thing. So we operate in anywhere from 3,600 square feet is our smallest location. 120,000 square feet is our largest. Most of them are in the neighborhood of 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. And they're in the boutique fitness segment, wrapped around helping athletes become better athletes. We're not the coach. The coach sets the playbook. They work on the skill of your sport. They're setting the lineup. We're your trainer. We're helping to train you to be better. So when you show up to practice, the coach can make you a better player. We're working on athleticism, speed, power, agility, strength, stamina, the elements of what athleticism really is. And so if I can take each of those components and improve upon them, at different levels and at different sequences, then you're going to show up to practice and the coach is going to turn you into a better player. Our business is grounded in science. It's we call it a science-based approach because we're helping utilize the scientific method of data collection and information to be able to apply that to every athlete. And now with artificial intelligence, we're utilizing the data we're collecting to be able to draw conclusions and direction on top of our own trainers' observations and experience. So speed, power, agility, strength, stamina as a data set helps us determine how we can help every athlete improve in each of those areas, depending on their sport and their position.
Okay.
I'm being very general, but that's really the intent here, is that as a franchise system, the goal is simple. It's just help every athlete get better.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you've got some principles in place where you're using science, right? You're incorporating new information, right, and turning that potential into performance, right, for your customers.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
strength and conditioning training is an element of every athlete's development. Right. You go to practice.
Yeah.
You got to work on your skill of sport, whether you're playing basketball and got to work on your free throws or your three-point shot. That's skill development. Flip side of it is both strength and conditioning, but in performance training is the work on making your body better to compete.
Mm-hmm.
And so we make better bodies. And we do that very specifically. I said speed, power, agility, strength, stamina. There's different strategies for each of those areas to amplify what you do. And depending on the sport, you may need different aspects. A volleyball player, speed isn't as nearly as important as explosive power and getting your vertical jump. Whereas, a cross-country runner, speed is pretty damn important. So is stamina. So they all have different weights and balances depending on the sport and position that you're playing. And we have different strategies, different training modalities, different equipment, different approaches, and how do we try to maximize each of those areas of an athlete's development.
Okay. So it sounds like individualization is part of the strategy.
That's a really good point. I think, if you look about the training options, you have one-on-one training, which you get exactly what you need from your one-on-one trainer. You have team training or boot camp style training where you have one trainer and you have, 20 different athletes. Our approach is individualized small group training where every athlete gets the right workout every time they come in. So it's a combination of the two. You get the community and environment of having the benefit of having other people around you, but you also get the individualization that we make sure that every workout's right, the right time for you based on where you start and where you want to go.
Okay. No, that's great. I have a question about the franchise aspect of this. So, every franchise, from what I gather, right, they all have, things they get from the franchisor, right? Marketing, equipment, technology, all these kinds of things. So it's kind of somewhat standardized, but what makes or breaks an individual location, right? When you look at the ownership, the day-to-day running or operating of the business, what differentiates a location that succeeds versus one that struggles?
Good question. I mean, the value of a franchise is the standardization. You're right. You get the same you get the same brand, the same marketing, same training and education, same training protocols that we deliver to the athletes. It's different by athlete, but the system is the same.
Yeah.
Our technology platform, our ability to assess athletes and apply that artificial intelligence to it, it's all the same. It all scales. So why does one center do better than the other? First reaction, people say, oh, it's my market. Well, yeah, but parents in our world, we're training 70% of our customers are youth and teens. Parents are committed in every market to help their kids get any advantage they can. If you have a son or a daughter and they say they like something or they want to get better, you're going to invest in that. And so our markets really, it doesn't matter almost anywhere in the country. There's committed parents to helping their athletes, their daughter or son improve. The difference is not the market, it's the owner. It's actually more than that. It's their ability to instill culture. A lot of people don't think about culture as well as they should. I mean, a lot of folks think about it as, oh, that's just the way things are done around here. But in a small business, you have the ability to change culture or shape culture or direct culture. And
Hmm.
so we spend a fair amount of time teaching our owners what that means. How do I actually shape culture? We're in the service business. We're in the hospitality industry. Yes, we're doing sports training, but does your staff know everybody by name? Do they stand up behind the front desk and give them a smile? I'm so glad you're here.
Hmm.
Do you understand what's going on and have empathy for your customers and understand what they're doing when they're coming through us? Is your place clean? Is our I look at this as, I call it training theater. And our
Mm.
trainers play a role. They're the face of our business. Now, I'm talking about a theatrical role in many ways. I'm looking for somebody that's going to be inspiring and be supportive. We're the only place in a young person's life that we're just there to help. Everybody else in their life is judging them, coaches and
Yeah.
teachers and parents and friends. We're just there to help. And so the role the trainer play about that inspiration and motivation and direction and counsel is really important. And so that culture is what
Mm.
separates a center that's performing at the top of our group to the ones that are performing at the middle or below. And so being
Awesome.
intentional and directive as an owner about the culture that you want to instill in your business is critical.
Wow, I love that. You know, my wife is in the fitness industry and she works for a franchise. And I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to help that franchise with what you just described because I think it's a huge difference. You mentioned theater, but I mean, another word is this, what's the customer experience? You know, how do
Absolutely.
they like? Are you leaving them better for the interaction, or are you, or are you not? So, and the funny thing about you talking about that, I keep looking over your shoulder. You're talking about culture, and I keep looking over your shoulder, and I see core values on the wall behind you.
Yeah.
So it looks like I hazard a guess that you're trying to lead your owners a little bit by example. So tell me about those core values, if you would.
I think it starts when you can't build a winning team if you don't have winning players.
Mhm.
And you can't build a winning team with winning players if you don't have alignment. And it starts with cultural alignment. What do you all believe in?
Yeah.
If you don't believe in the same things, you'll never get there. You'll never be a winner. So we start with values. I can't shape culture in any one of our training centers. I can help the owner understand how they can. But what I can do is say, these are the values that we all believe in. We believe in the power of sport. Think about your own experiences growing up playing. You played sports in high school. You learned to
Mhm.
be on time. You learned persistence through practice. You learned how to be you learned how to win. You learned how to lose. You learned how to face your fears. You learned how to challenge yourself. Those are part of my DNA. I was an
Mhm.
elite level athlete. I was a swimmer and then a triathlete, ranked top 10 in two different sports in the world. And I was never the best athlete, but I was always the most prepared. And I got that from my coaches. I got that from sport, not from work,
Yeah.
but from sport because I saw that preparation paid off. Those life lessons, everybody has different ones they took out of it, but I would argue that's part of their DNA today. Each of
Awesome.
these values that we have, I think the other one that really sticks out to me is the spirit of sportsmanship.
Mhm.
Why is that so important to play by the rules? Why is it integrity and honesty matter? Come on, are you really kidding me? That's part of business today. You have
Yeah.
to be somebody you can count on. But more importantly, in our world, in my world as a training center business, parents are trusting us with their most valuable possessions, their children.
Mhm.
Integrity matters.
Mhm.
Being somebody that they will trust with their kids matters. The spirit of sportsmanship matters. Each one of these goals has
Yeah.
a story behind it and a reason why we're there, but it starts with the formation of who you are. And do you
Mhm.
buy into the same kind of culture that we all share? And if you do, come on board. And if you don't, I wish you well.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I think that aspect too of culture is, like you said, it's most powerful when people opt in, right? When you create clarity and you can get people to choose, right, and come in, right? Because whatever I decide that I'm attracted to, that I want, right, I'm more likely to stick to. Um, so besides those core values, anything else that you would say that you do to help your owners be successful in achieving their goals?
Like I think a lot of any good CEO, you're a good listener.
Mhm.
I think I don't. I'm again. I'm not the. I was never the best athlete, but I was a top 10 in the world in two sports. I was never the best CEO, but I'm a decent listener. And I think people will tell you what you need to know. I've got franchises all across the country, and I pay attention to what they're doing. And the ones that are doing well, there's a reason they're doing well. And it's not just culture, but there's other things that they're picking up on. And I look at our KPIs, our daily reports, so I can see how their business performance and their customer engagement and their lead management and their athlete development scores are all performing. And the ones that are jumping off the charts on a consistently basis, I want to know what they're doing. I want to bottle it and then share it with everybody else. So
Mm.
part of joining a franchise system is that you get the best practices from everybody in your business. They're doing the same thing. And so it may look like HQ is coming up with all these programs and things like that, but it's not true. We're just copying what our successful operators are already doing and sharing it with everybody else in a way
Mm.
that they can understand it, absorb it, and utilize it. It's really authentic. And that's, I
Yeah.
think, in any business, whether you're reflecting your customer or your consumer, so that you can be the most authentic and help them enjoy the experience they're having with you, that's a win. And that's what we do.
Mm. Yeah. I'm reflecting on what you said earlier about
Not the
people
part where I
people.
wasn't the smartest, right? I hope.
No, no, no. I'm talking about the part where people want to do well. People want to
Yeah.
what I'm hearing you describe is I've heard a lot of people refer to as a culture of growth, and continuous improvement is always a feature in a growing organization. Does it say continuous? I can't
It's
read
one of
it.
them up there.
It's
We're
one of
always
them up there.
improving.
Okay, yeah, because things change, right? And people innovate, and spreading those innovations and cross pollinating sounds like it's a powerful part of your success formula as well.
Well, I think, you're right. Continuous improvement, it is one of our values. We're not the same company we were a year ago, a month ago, or even a
Mm.
week ago. You
Hmm.
can't be today. It's not
Yeah.
possible. You have to be adapting to the market, to technology. The consumer interests are changing. I mean, we talked about this at the very beginning. Fitness is fads. Part of my job as a CEO is to be looking out 6 months and 12 and 18 and 24 to make sure I'm future proofing this investment that
Yeah.
they're making in our business. I mean, the one-off gym guy can't do what I'm doing because they don't have the time, the bandwidth, or the resources to be able to future proof. And so we're looking ahead and investing ahead of before the demand hits. Now, sometimes we hit it and sometimes we don't, but that's my expense and my investment to try to make sure that we're always improving. And no
Mm.
matter what we do, even if it doesn't work, we learn something from the process. So you
Okay.
have to continue to have somebody on your team being very strategic about where you're going and why,
All right. Be able to see around the corner, if you will. Yeah.
or at least see the corner.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. So, um, you've been at this for a while, right? I mentioned 35 years with this franchise and a career before that. I'm curious, in the spirit of continuous improvement, what what are what are one or two of those lessons maybe that you learned, mistakes that you made along the way that have become your greatest teachers?
Um, do what you do well.
Hmm.
So I made a lot of mistakes. One of them was trying to do too many things, trying
Okay.
to invest in things that didn't make sense. I think control what you can control and do well what you do well. I think sometimes people want to move outside their core business and get extensions. And I think until your core business is so good, so great on all levels, why do something else? And I think my mistake was being distracted by the shiny next object and chasing that before I would control all the things I could control and do well what I already did best.
Mhm. Okay.
I think just keep it simple. I mean, there's a reason why your business is working. Invest in that first.
Mhm. Okay. Um, I'm curious if so I was on the podcast actually talking with another guy who was a world-class athlete, and I asked him how sports, like his participation in his sport, how did it help his leadership? And I got a kind of a surprising answer that I'll share after I hear your answer. How did your experience in swimming and triathlons translate into your leadership?
I was in two sports that were considered individual sports, right? Not team
Hmm.
sports. It took a team for me to be successful at them, but the effort was individual.
Yeah.
Um, in both those sports, you have to take a long view, a season long view, sometimes even longer, to be able to have the outcomes you wanted. There's always a championship at the end or something like that. So you're always pointing towards a goal and building toward that in a very small way.
Mm.
Some would call it a grind. And I think that endurance mindset of recognizing that small steps every day will contribute to big leaps later on. And I think that is the one thing that I would say I took from my sports experience, is that to be patient, to
Mm.
know that the little things mattered, that being consistent counted, and that in the end, you're better prepared for the big moments when you need to be.
Excellent. Wow.
Okay, what
Okay.
did your friends say?
Yeah. So another CEO, he what he highlighted was he was also in individual sports, and he said that some of his learning from his sport uh, made it a bit difficult for him to lead teams because he was used to being very quite self-deterministic, right? And when other people came on board and he was leading teams of people, that sometimes his standards of excellence and his drive, right, sometimes became a liability. He had to unlearn some things
Mm-hmm.
and maybe move toward kind of learn some things about teamwork and team approach that was kind of the spirit of his answer.
That one I learned early. There's no
Okay.
question that you can't impose your will on others.
Mm.
And so I think, you can set common goals, you can set objectives and priorities and hold people accountable to them. I think you have to trust the fact that everybody wants to get to the same place. That if you set a common goal or some common priority, that everybody wants to do something similar as long as there's buy-in around it. And they're all going to get there a little bit differently. And that's okay. Um, I approach problems and situations one way. I love it when somebody approaches it a different way because I learn something from them. I see a different perspective. We're not all that clairvoyant that we can see all ways to all things. So, I think it's fine. Now, the hard part is that you have to trust people to make their own decisions.
Mm.
I personally believe that nobody makes a bad decision. Nobody makes a bad decision. Now, in the outcome, it may be the wrong decision, but when in the moment, they made the best decision they could with the information they had available and the
Mm.
requirements that they had. So I believe that they tried to do their best. Now, it may not have been the right one, but they made it. Good for them. Now we'll learn from it.
Mm.
You can't hold people for making the wrong decision. You might have done the same, but there's no way that you develop a team and don't and not have them learn if they're not making decisions. If you make all of them,
All right. Everybody needs the right to be wrong, right? And then learn from it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
not be grateful. And as a leader, be grateful that they made the decision and tried,
Mhm.
right or wrong.
Mhm.
Okay, now what? Now what are we going to do? Because you can't change what it was. Now we can just change what's going forward. So what do we learn from that? How will you make changes this time?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, kind of turning toward the future. You mentioned you mentioned something that I imagine is a part of the future anyway. You mentioned AI as taking a place in your business now. What else? What are some other things that you see as upcoming opportunities or challenges for your business in the next 5 years?
There's been, oh my gosh, a lot. Uh, on the consumer side, like I said, we're 70% of our business is youth and teens, trying to help them become better players or better athletes so they can become better players. 30% is adult fitness. So let's stay with the youth and teens for a moment.
Okay.
Last year, there was a ruling that the NCAA had. People kind of overlooked what it was. And the Title IX changes eliminated the cap on scholarships. So if you play a college sport, it used to be that maybe girls volleyball had 12 scholarships. Well,
Yeah.
now there's no limit. You make the team, they can give you a full ride. So parents are looking at this opportunity to say, here's
Mm.
4 or 5 times more scholarships available to us. College is not only accessible, it's also a more, my kid gets a scholarship, I don't have to pay for it. There's hundreds of $1,000s in value. On top of that, there may be some NIL money, so that a name, image, and likeness dollars that will dedicate against it. So it may be a big number, like some of the quarterbacks and basketball players are getting, or maybe just pizza money, $1,000 a month. That means I don't have to have a summer job.
Yeah.
So I think there's a big shift coming
Mm.
as we look at athlete recruitment at the college level, D2, D3, as well as D1. And that it's going to open up more opportunities for kids to play longer, and parents viewing this as an investment into their kids' development. Not only do they get to make the team in high school, get in the starting lineup, but also pave their way to college. So that's a big shift that's happening with us and creating a lot of demand in the market for performance training, because it's a component of helping an athlete get better and be more resilient, meaning that we don't want that junior, senior, high school, junior or senior in high school athlete getting hurt. We
Right.
need them to play all season long so that they can have that performance be able to carry them on into college. So resiliency,
Mm.
fortifying their body so that we're resisting an injury is something that is really important. So that's one. Um, I think post COVID, we've seen adult fitness explode. There's more concepts for adults to be able to stay fit than, my God, every week there's some new concept that's coming out. Great, great. Be healthier. That's a good thing. Make
Mm.
America healthy. That's awesome, and we're a part of that. I think a lifestyle move that's happening, not just at the younger levels, but all the way through age, where people are recognizing that I look better and feel better. I'm going to be better. So that's a trend that is continuing post COVID that I think hasn't stopped. We've seen fitness in general continue to get double digit growth each year as more people come into training. Third, you kind of hit AI. I would say technology in general. I look at, when we first started technology, it was about business operations, productivity, and efficiency.
Yeah.
Now it's about intelligence. So we're capturing data on every one of our systems to be able to make better business decisions. That data is valuable, as we look at it, and then you can make conclusions your own, or be able to use AI to draw those data analytics that we could never connect dots on. And now with all my locations across the country, I can run those systems approach and find out what's working better or not, saving us tons of time
Yeah.
in prospecting for the next big thing when it's sitting right there in front of us.
Mm.
And
Yeah. The
again, back to the
speed.
little things. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be small incremental jumps, steps that are going to lead to bigger things if I do it consistently.
Mm.
So those are three. I think, in that same technology piece, we're doing not only doing it for the business, we're also doing it for the athlete. So we're collecting data on their speed, power, agility, strength, and stamina. We assess every athlete when they first come into us to get a baseline on those components, and then they
Uh-huh.
get tested every month, and we track their progress. Well, that data goes back into that database too, and say, what more can we be doing? And all of a sudden, it's giving us insights of things that we need to work on for that athlete that we never had before. And this
Oh,
is the
okay.
stuff the NBA is doing for 15 athletes at a time, that we'll have 25,000 athletes that we train this year. It's the world's largest performance database. And so you come to Athletic Republic and you're going to get the benefit and insights of the other 25,000 athletes that we'll train this year and last year and the year before, to be able to say, okay, this is how you become a better athlete.
Hmm.
Powerful stuff. We're
Wow.
all busy. We're all too busy. Kids especially, they got school and homework and extracurricular activities and sports. And now we're going to ask them to say, make time for performance training. Yeah, because it makes a difference. Well, if I can show you that the hour and a half you spend with me a couple of days a week actually is going to pay off, it makes it a lot easier to justify.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, and the compounding speed, right, of like being able to get those insights quicker with data, is kind of a game changer, especially with the size of database that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it's still just a small portion of the number of athletes that are playing, but still
Yeah.
it's meaningful. And we know that, the elements of athleticism matter. Coaches will tell you, if you're fast, you will play.
Yeah.
They're always going to get the fastest player on the field or on the court or on the ice. And so we teach speed. We teach athletes to get faster. We're speed merchants. One of our
Mm.
skill sets is helping you get faster.
Mm.
And if you do that, you're going to find your way to a higher level of performance and higher level of success on the field and on the team.
Yeah, and it's something that you can do something about, right? Like, you can't change your height, right? You can't change,
Yeah.
you can't, at least not yet. You can't change maybe some of the base genetics and some of those things, but you can maximize your potential, right? You can,
Right.
work on
And
the
and
things you can work on,
and we
right?
can teach speed.
Mm.
I can't change your genetics. I can't change your fast twitch, slow twitch muscle fibers, but I can work on your running mechanics. No different than I'm working on your serve mechanics for tennis or your golf swing. Same thing with running. Parents give their kids swim lessons and tennis lessons and piano lessons.
Yeah.
They never give them running lessons. Why not? It's a skill just
Mm.
like any other thing. So come see Athletic Republic. We'll get you a running lesson and make you faster.
Right. Yeah. I'm chuckling because I was just having a conversation the other day, with somebody about swimming, and they were talking about it as for me. I said swimming for me is just not drowning. Like, that's my objective, right? But that's a completely different thing than people who actually know how to swim, right? And why wouldn't it be the same with running, right? Everyone can run, right? But there's a big difference between doing it, correctly, right? The right mechanics and getting good at it.
Well, and it certainly helps you improve faster if you have the mechanics that you can work on.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you can work
No,
with
that's
that.
great. Cool. So, would love to hear a little bit, about personally for you. What is it that you're trying to build? What kind of legacy are you trying to build? Like, what would you like to leave behind you with those core values and other things? What does it look like?
I think I'm really proud of the fact that our International Franchise Association, this is our trade association in the U.S. for all franchises. It represents 830,000 different locations, 4,000 different brands. In each of the last 3 years, one of my franchisees has been recognized as Franchise of the Year. Now they award a couple dozen of these a year, so it's not exclusive, just one, but there's a couple dozen franchises of the year recognized, and we're the only one the last 3 years that's recognized in the health and fitness segment.
Uh,
The fact that I'm helping these small business owners realize their dreams, that they're making a difference. The IFA didn't award them these prizes, these recognition, because they're making money or following the Athletic Republic system. They're making a difference in their community. They're making a
mm,
difference with the athletes that they were training. They're giving them something more than just an experience. And so for me, that mission statement of transforming potential into performance, helping every one of my owners become the best they can be, the best they can serve their community. That's a legacy that I would be proud of if I'm successful at this.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And what would that mean to you? So achieving that legacy, what does it mean?
This is a world where everybody's chasing a buck, right?
Hmm.
You make an investment in something you want to return. And it's no different with a franchise, but I think they can go hand in hand. I think you can line your pockets at the same time you can feed your soul. And I think if my legacy could be that there's a profitable business that you actually did good with, that you served your community, that you gave back in the process, that would mean a lot to me. That it just wasn't another investment.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I I like to say business can be a force for good in the world, right? And often it seems to be kind of demonized, right? Or looked at as business owners are greedy or whatever, right? But I love how you said that. Right? That doesn't have to just be that. Of course, it needs to be profitable, but it can be more.
That's
It can
right.
be more. That's
And I think
awesome.
for me, it starts with that culture and bringing the right
Mm,
people onto my team that get that want to have that same vision and direction. And they're people that come into their centers the same way. Make
mm,
a difference because you can.
yeah. Um, I'm curious if you were talking to, and I'm sure you do this quite a bit, talk to people who are thinking of starting a business. What's what's a piece of advice that you would have for somebody who's just stepping into an entrepreneurial journey?
I mean, your career, my career, everybody, you've done things in your life that you've had to do. I've had to provide for my family. I've had to, you know, I went to school for this and I had to graduate and use it. You see that all. I can't tell you the number of dentists I've talked to recently that regret their decision to be a dentist. Um, just because it's hard. It's a really hard job, and it doesn't scale very well, and they're looking for something else. But I would say when you get to a point in your career when you have a choice, maybe because I've talked to a number of people in the last 2 weeks that have been laid off from government jobs, and they've
Mhm.
been in the government civil service for their entire careers. And I said, look at you. This is the first time you get to decide what you want to do, not what you have to do. And they're smart people. They'll be successful at whatever they choose, I think. But why not do what you want to do? Because I think you'll be better at it. And whether you end up because you ended up being laid off or because you're now investing in your entrepreneurial vibe or whatever it is, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Make sure there's enough backbone behind it that you can be successful at it, profitable enough to support what you want to do with it, but do what you want to do first. That passion matters. If you love it, it'll make the bad days so much easier. If you love it, you'll make the best days even greater. Do what you want to do, not what you have to do. Our parents did that. My dad did that. He had to provide. He was lucky to have a job and provide for his family, and he was grateful for that. But he didn't like it. He went to
Yeah.
work every day because he had to. He gave us the right to be able to do what we want to, and
Mm.
so that's what I would tell somebody that's looking at this business or any other business.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And if you find one of those jobs, right, it doesn't feel like a job,
That's right.
or it doesn't feel like work, maybe. Yeah, there's certainly can feel like a job, but
One of the things I ask everybody that comes through here that's looking at our franchise, I ask them to tell me why. Write me a paragraph about why you want to be a franchise owner in Athletic Republic. Tell me your why,
mm,
because I think the why shows you your way. And on those, like I said, on those bad days, and I pulled those whys out, and I know they're having a crappy day. I'll send them their why, and they'll remind themselves of why they did this to begin with.
Yeah, because the hard days are coming, right? I mean, in any
There's no
business.
there's no great day every day. It doesn't work that way.
No, no, yeah. And knowing your why and knowing your values, right, is how we navigate those
That's right.
turbulent times. So, oh, that's great. Any anything else? So I'm curious in the business that you're in, um, you know, what's your routine? How it keeps you going? Um, you know, give me a day in the life of Charlie Graves.
There is no day in the life. There's no typical day. Um, I try to get some exercise in first thing in the morning because I know that way I can control it. So
Okay.
I try to get, do something that gets my blood moving and my body moving. I try to get some exercise in. It doesn't always work out every day, but I try. Um, Between the time I get to the gym and the time I leave, time I get up, I've already scanned my inbox to see if there's any crisis. And so if there's a crisis, I'll deal with that first. If it's not a crisis and just important, I'll tackle whatever on my agenda. I'll plan it the day before of my most important things. I am a morning person. I'm best first thing in the morning. So if I've got an important task at hand, I'm going to deal with that before I climb into my inbox and get soaked into hell. So important first, urgent first, then important, and then my inbox, and then my first calls begin usually at 9. And so then the rest of the day is on the phone talking to people. And then
Okay.
whatever happened by the end of the day, usually done by 3:30 or 4, I'm cleaning up whatever I promised people I'd do. I take care of it till I'm done. Because if I don't deal with it that day, it's going to wait till the weekend because my schedule's too busy for that. So
Mm, okay.
my schedule's booked out typically a week to 2 weeks in advance by hour. And, so I deal with my most important tasks first thing in the morning, and then I deal cleanup in the afternoon and deal with customers, consumers, partners, whatever it's going to take during the course of any day.
Oh, that's great. I saw a quote the other day. It sounds like you're kind of doing you don't prioritize your schedule. Schedule your priorities. And you're starting the day right with the things that are most important. So,
Yeah, it's pretty easy to
mm,
get overwhelmed by whatever comes in at first. And a lot of people, they eat what's on their plate, right? What's ever staring them in their face, they're going to deal with first. And you can't do that. There was years ago, I did a job interview back before there was cell phones, and they gave me an inbox test. And in the inbox test, so you have 1 hour before you're going on vacation for a week, no outside contact. Go through your inbox and decide what you're going to do. Write a note on everything that you're going to deal with. Dumped it out and looked at all the things that were important, tried to prioritize those, deal with things that I couldn't deal with later, weren't follow-ups or whatever. And they said afterwards, you were the first person that actually turned the inbox over and dumped it out. Everybody else started with pages at the top and started
top.
scanning. You just ignored it all and just dumped it out and went at it. I was like, well, I guess that's because I was looking for the things that were most critical,
Mm,
and I
yeah.
got the job.
Awesome. Oh, interesting. Well, great. Oh, appreciate your time today with me, Charlie. This has been fantastic. Any final words of advice that you give to anybody, future business leaders or yeah,
Well,
stage is
one is the
yours.
plug for the company. So if you're looking for a franchise and a pivot into your career, or maybe a portfolio investment, check us out at athleticrepublic.com. And if you're interested in buying a franchise or learning more, please reach out to me. My email will be in somewhere on the website.
Perfect.
Advice, I think it all comes down to um, recognizing that you can only do so much, that you only have domain over the things that you can control. Influence the things that you can control and do them as best as you possibly can. Be the best at what you are and what you do. Be the very best at it. Um, and And don't worry about the things that you can't control or that don't have your domain. The things that you need will be right in front of you. Just deal with those first. Don't get distracted.
Right. Yeah. It's too much going on for us to try to tackle everything. Yeah.
That's
Today
right.
nowadays is a perfect example of that. Just can be overwhelming. So
Yep.
great advice. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate you spending time with us at Untold today. Look forward to releasing this episode and talking to you again soon. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.